So I want to switch now and talk a little bit about PISA. And in PISA, one of the key design criteria for us when we thought about bidding on PISA was the measurement of trends. And so we noticed when we went back and looked at the data that the trend data bounces around quite a bit from country to country. So you can look and see, if you look at changes over time, you can see that changes are like in the order of 20, 30 points or more on PISA for a number of countries. So we wanted to see if we could come up with a conceptual design that would enhance and stabilize the measurement of trend. And we wanted to refocus the balance between random and systematic errors to improve measurement. So I want to spend some time talking about that. So this, I think, will, if you think about PISA, PISA differs from most other assessments that I'm aware of in the sense that it really uses 9-year cycles, right? So it has this concept of major and minor domains. Well, so this is 2006. This would be science. It was the major domain. And then reading and math were the 2 minor domains. And so what does this bar mean? The height of the bar represents the construct of, in this case, science. And the width of the bar represents the number of students who took each item when they were looking at trend. So what happens here? The major domain, you measure the construct fully, right? And in the minor domain, what do? You give up measuring the construct, right? So if you think back to the 2006 design, it's probably 6 or 7 clusters of science items. There were 2 clusters of reading items, and I think 3 clusters of math items, right? So basically, only half of the construct was being measured, and less than half in reading and math, but the whole construct in science. But what they kept was the number of students per item, right? So what we think of is that they traded off what we would call systematic error by reducing the construct or what was being measured, but kept the random error sort of constant by making sure you had the same number of students taking each item in each assessment. So what we wanted to do in 2015 and beyond was kind of flip that. We said you can tolerate random error because you can measure random error because it shows up in your standard errors. But we wanted to strengthen the construct coverage. So what we argued and what we proposed was you can do this by widening how much of the construct. So we wanted to cover 100% of the construct, which would reduce the systematic error, right? Because now you're measuring the construct. You know, no matter how good your models are, you still have to have measurement, right? You can't predict too much from too few items, right? So the less you measure, the more reliance you put on the model. And that's where I think you get a lot of fluctuation. So what we were arguing is that the major domain will continue to be a full measurement of the construct, but now we ought to broaden the measurement of the minor domains so that they better represent the construct, and we can give them to fewer students, right? So you can give more items, but fewer students take each item. That will increase the random error a little bit, but it will reduce the systematic error. Right? And so we think that's a better approach, and this is the design for PISA 2015, plays off of this conceptual approach because we think this will lead to more stable measurement. So this is now representing that domain rotation. So remember, it's a 9-year cycle. So the construct of science had to last for 9 years. Just like the construct of reading in 2009 will go to 2018, and math was redefined in 2012, so that'll go till 2021. So here's how we see this playing out. So we will have all of the trend items. So that is all of the paper-based items from 2006 will be replicated in 2015. And for those countries taking it on the computer, we will adapt all of the 2006 items to the computer, as well as keep them in paper, right? Now, when they define the new construct, some of the framework will be the same, and some of it will be new, right? So scientific inquiry is kind of new. Even though it was in the construct before, or in the framework before, they didn't really measure scientific inquiry through these interactive scenarios. So everything to the right of this blue line represents the new items for 2015. Everything to the left represents the trend. So just to be a little more concrete, in 2015 for science, there are 6 trend clusters in paper. There will be 6 trend clusters on the computer, plus 12 new clusters of science on the computer for the field test, from which 9 will be developed and implemented for the main survey. So you can see the construct of science will be better measured. And then in the minor domains, so science then in 2018 becomes a minor domain, and in 2021, it will represent the new framework. So what does this mean? So if you're a country and you're choosing not to do computer, right? So what does that mean? It means that over time, PISA will become less and less relevant to you as a country. Why? Because every time there's a new cycle, you get a new construct. And that construct will be less and less like the old construct. So over time, since you can only measure trend in paper, right? So none of the new item development in PISA is done on the computer. So all of this is computer-based, right? Only this represents parts of that. So whatever amount this is, right, that represents stuff that's not being developed in paper. So over time, so by 2018, it'll be science and math that will have new frameworks, and we'll have things that don't overlap with the paper. 21, it'll be reading math, reading math and science. So over time, PISA will become less and less relevant in paper to countries. And this is by design of the OECD, right? The OECD has made a direct, conscious decision to move to computers for the reasons that I talked about before, because they believe that's the way kids and adults will continue to access, use, and communicate information. And paper, while it's not going to go away, will become less and less relevant from a measurement point of view. So what we've tried to do is reconceptualize this 9-year cycle so that it reflects the construct, not just for the major domain, but also for the minor domain, so that the measurement is improved, the trends are stabilized, and we will apply the same criteria of comparability for PISA as we did in PIAC. That is, what we want to make sure is that you minimize the number of item-by-country interactions so that you don't introduce any kind of systematic error into the assessment. So this is the approach. It's very different from what's happened in earlier cycles. And this is the way I believe PISA will go forward. Sure.
One question. Just one very small question. Is these 2 bars to the right that say minor 2018 and 2021, in reality they are the link items that will be used.
Right.
And they're taken from the major 2015.
Exactly.
So there will be exactly the same items.
Exactly.
And you will not renew until the next cycle.
Exactly.
Okay.
So PISA works on a 9-year cycle. So whenever you introduce a new framework, that framework lasts for 9 years or 3 cycles. And so this represents the old trend items. This represents the new trend. And so what we're saying is this subset of items will represent the full construct, right? But it'll be the new construct, not the old construct.
Okay.
Okay? Anybody else have any questions?